My name is Christopher Botiller. We'll be reading Stupid Marco by J. Williams with pictures by Friso Henstra. Alright. The youngest son of the king of Lirip was called Marco. That is, he was called Marco. We said that. Or your highness in public. But among themselves people spoke of him as poor dear Marco. Or alas, poor Marco. This book seems to repeat itself. You'll get the point twice. Or just sigh and roll their eyes. This was because although he was cheerful and good-hearted and handsome, he was not bright enough to tell his right from his left. That's why they have the left here. He was not exactly stupid, but then neither was he exactly as brilliant as a prince ought to be. His two older brothers quickly passed all their classes in government, politics, courtly bowing, I didn't take that, economics, arithmetic, and science. But Marco looked out the window and smiled as he hummed and made up poetry. It was bad poetry, best kind. But on every one of his classroom papers, his instructor sadly wrote, failed. However, Marco had three great accomplishments. In the first place, he was so charming and pleasant a person that no one could help liking him and wanting to help him. I didn't suffer from that. Secondly, he could whistle very loudly, but between his fingers, that could go different ways. And thirdly, he knew an infallible cure for hiccups. In consequence, people found excuses for him. Nobody minded very much of his being a little slow-witted, and he was popular everywhere in the kingdom. One day his father, Marco, called Marco into the throne room. My dear boy, he said, the time has come for you to undertake your quest. As you know, it is the custom for, that word again, Lirip. For every young prince, when he has finished his schooling, to go forth and rescue a princess for his bride. Your two older brothers have successfully done so. Now it's your turn. Yes, father, said Marco. My turn for what? The king sighed and patiently repeated what he had said. I'm going to make it easy for you, he went on. There's a very nice princess named Aurelia, who is being held prisoner in a tower not far from here. Maybe if it was a puppy, he'd be more enthused. I have written instructions for rescuing her on this piece of paper. You will set out tomorrow morning early and go 3 miles to the south. When you come to the fork in the road, turn left and continue until you come to the tower. Then follow the instructions. Certainly, father, Marco said. But how will I know which way is left? I have thought of that too, said the king, taking up the golden pen and inkwell which stood beside his throne. The following morning Marco set out, mounted on his fine black steed, with his sword by his side. He looked handsomer than ever. Handsomer? And on the backs of his hands were written words right and left. So as we can see here, we've got left and right, appropriately marked. His mother kissed him goodbye and then stood back to wave. Oh dear, I hope he can stay out of trouble, she murmured to the king. Well, my love, said the king, he doesn't have certain accomplishments. Pardon me, he does. It seems like he doesn't, but he does. He is so admirable and attractive that I am sure he will find people to help him wherever he goes. Sounds like he could use plenty of help. As a last resort, he can cure someone's hiccups or whistle. Oh, right, between his fingers. Off went Marco for the first mile. He rode merrily enough. That sounds like enough to me. But then he ran. It began to rain. Down it came until the feather on his hat was bent and his clothes were drenched. Of course, he had forgotten his raincoat. Stupid Marco. He kept up his spirits, however, by singing songs to himself. At the last, he came to the fork in the road. You know, the figurative fork in the road. He looked down at his hands, but the back of his... I know where this is going. Back of each hand, there was only a blue smear. The rain had washed away the ink. I'll just have to make a guess, said Marco, and he took the road to the right. Or to the right. He traveled on and on. The rain stopped. The sun came out and warmed and dried him. Mile after mile he traveled for many days, but at last, one day after he had ridden to the top of the hill, he saw spread out below him a glittery city. I wonder if it's the right one. Let's see. He rode down to it and entered the gates. In the center of the city was an elegant castle. We'll use our imagination. In the downstairs window of one of its towers, a maiden sat with her chin on her hand, staring into space. Her smooth brown hair hung long braids tied with golden bows. This is a lot of description. And her eyes were the color of forget-me-nots. Oh. Marco took his hat off. Good morning, he said. Are you the Princess of Aurelia? The girl yawned. Oh, never heard of that, she said. Marco shook his head. Ah, well, I've done it again, he said. You see, I have to rescue Princess Aurelia. My father said she was in town not far from our kingdom, but I've traveled for miles and miles. I must have taken the wrong road. I thought it seemed rather long. I'm afraid. He finished with an engaging grin. I'm not very smart. I can't even tell my right from my left. The girl stopped yawning and looked at him more closely. She smiled in return. My dear, she said, you aren't fit to be out alone. You need someone to look after you. I'd better go along with you and help you find this princess. That sounds like a bad idea. There she is, traveling along. That would be marvelous, said Marco. Well, but I haven't the faintest idea where she is. Well, said the girl, my father has a magical parrot, which can answer any questions put to it. If you'll wait a moment, I'll get the bird, and we'll see if we can locate her. She helped Marco climb in through the window. Oh, stupid Marco. My name, she said, is Sylvia. Marco introduced himself, then Sylvia went off and fetched this parrot. It was made of all ivory. That means elephants died. This is a children's book. With emerald eyes, it sat on a perch of gold. Sylvia asked, where is Princess Aurelia? The parrot whirled and ticked. It may have been at the Boston. Then it said, she is shut up in the green glass tower among the hills of Gargovir. Ah, there we go. Ah, said Sylvia. And how do we get there from here? Again, the parrot ticked and whirred. Only one person can tell you how to reach the green glass tower, it croaked. A maiden named Roseanne who lives in a village of Dwindle. Good, said Sylvia. I know where Dwindle is at any rate. Oh, sure, Google Maps. We'll leave at once. They set out together, Sylvia on a milk-white horse. The way was shortened by Marco, who told stories and sang songs and recited his verses. By the time they got to Dwindle, Sylvia remarked thoughtfully, "I'm not sure that matters much at all, knowing your right from your left hand." A friendly innkeeper showed them the house where the maiden Roseanne lived. "Don't bother knocking," he said, "because she never answers the door. Just go right in. If you can get the door opened," he added, rather mysteriously. They tied up their horses outside the cottage. It was a pretty place, thatched with straw and covered with honeysuckle, which perfumed the air. They pushed at the door and struggled and got it open. Then they saw why the door had been so difficult. The floor was covered with gold pieces, which had piled up against the door like a drift of yellow snow. The girl was washing her dishes. Wait, so she had like many, many ounces of gold sitting there. I guess the value of gold has come down. So it's in the way. The girl was washing dishes with her back to the door. She was humming and making such a clatter in the sink that she hadn't heard Marco and Sylvia enter. Marco cleared his throat and said, "I beg your pardon." The girl turned around. "Oh, you startled me," she exclaimed. 4 bright pieces of gold fell from her mouth and clinked on the floor. Talk about having something caught in your throat. The girl clapped on her hand and to her forehead and said, "Drat." Another gold piece dropped from her lips. She took down a large pad that hung on the wall and began writing busily on it. Marco and Sylvia came and looked curiously over her shoulder. "I'm Roseanne. Welcome," the girl wrote. "As you see, I have something of a problem. Once I saved the life of a good fairy, Melinda. As a reward, she said to me, 'My child, you are poor, but kind. A gold piece shall fall from your mouth with every word you speak.'" "Heavens," said Sylvia. "Can't you make her change her mind?" "I don't know how to find her," Roseanne wrote mournfully. Then she added as an afterthought, "I'm sorry about the floor." "Well, it's a little late for that. I had some friends for a party last night, and I haven't had a chance to sweep it up yet. I do wish I could somehow help you." Marco said earnestly, "I don't know any magic, but I do know an infallible that's a tough one, infallible cure for hiccups. Would you say that what you have is a kind of hiccup?" "It wouldn't hurt to try," said Roseanne, clasping her hands. 5 more gold pieces went jingling down to join the rest. I would have caught them. "Very well," said Marco. "Put your head in a large paper bag." Or plastic. No, never use plastic. That's bad. "Hold your breath while I count to 10, and then breathe in and out through your mouth 10 times. Roseanne got out the paper bag and did as she was ordered. When at last she took it off her head and they gazed at her in suspense. "Speak," said Sylvia. "I'm afraid to," Roseanne replied, but nothing happened. Not a gold piece appeared. With a look of joy, she touched her lips. "It worked," she said. "I'm cured." These characters are very quick to believe. She burst into laughter and throwing her arms around Marco and gave him a kiss. "What can I do to show my gratitude?" Sounds like she already did. She said, "You can tell us how to get to the green glass tower," said Marco. "I have to rescue a princess there." Roseanne nodded. "I can tell you how to get to the green glass tower," she said. "But, alas, my telling you won't do much good. The tower is 190 miles from here." It took a while just for them to go 3 miles. Beyond the deep ravines, high mountains, pits of flames, the deerful mud, the bottomless bog They're never going to get there. The river of knives. Dear me, said Marco. That's what he said, dear? The only way to get there, Roseanne continued, is to use the 7-league boots belonging to Flyfront, the neocromancer who lived at the other end of his village. Do you think he would lend them to me? Some 7-league boots. Marco asked worriedly. Roseanne replied, if you give him something he needs, which he doesn't know what he wants, and which he won't know he has when he gets it. Poor Marco looked at her in bewilderment. I can't even remember the beginning of that sentence, he said. No kidding, that was a tough one. But what does it mean? I don't know, said Roseanne. But what does it... I'm not going back. Here we go. We're continuing on. Never mind, Sylvia put in. Good. Thank you, Sylvia. We'll go and see this neocromancer. Perhaps he'll help Marco anyway. Bidding Roseanne farewell, they went to the other end of the village. A tall, narrow, dark house stood alone in a garden of toadstools. I hope he had... he doesn't even have those boots on. Imagine having toadstools all over your shoes. At an open window. High under the eaves sat a neocromancer. He had his back to the window and was reading. Good afternoon, sir, called Marco. The neocromancer did not stir. Good afternoon. Marco repeated loudly. Hey, you-hoo, sir. He must have been deaf, remarked Sylvia. She's a wise one. Now, in fact, neocromancer was not usually deaf, but some days before, while engaged in magic, of course, he had some drops a heavy spell on the foot of a small but bad-tempered imp. In revenge, the imp had settled invisibly on the neocromancer's head and plugged up his ears with his fingers. Okay, so put your imagination caps on for that one. Sylvia said to Marco, give him a whistle and maybe that will attract his attention. Marco put his fingers between his lips and whistled. It was so loud a shrill, a whistle, that chimneys in the village shook. No chimney shaking here. Magic. Birds fell out of the sky. Wow, what a whistle. Covering their ears with their wings. Birds have ears. And the invisible imp, with a squeak of fright, left the necromancer's head and flew off into the next kingdom. Definitely a different time. The necromancer, of course, did not know what had happened. He had not heard Marco's whistle, nor had he known that the imp was plugging up his ears. All he knew was that suddenly he could hear again. The clock was ticking. The wind was rustling the leaves. He turned at a glance out of the window and saw a handsome young man and a pretty girl standing in the street, staring up at him. Who could this be? Surely not Marco and Sylvia. Good afternoon, he said. Were you waiting to see me? We need your help, Marco answered. But I hope we haven't disturbed you. Disturbed me? Certainly not, said the necromancer. He found that he was suddenly feeling very fit. Necromancer. Commencez? Oh. He thought to himself that this fine young man deserved his attention. He hurried downstairs and let Marco and Sylvie in. What can I do for you, he said. Please lend me your 7-league boots, said Marco. I have to go to the green glass tower to rescue Princess Aurelia. The necromancier looked grave. My friend, he said, I will lend you the boots with pleasure, but I am sorry to say that if you go to that tower, you'll be going to your death. Great, can finally end. For there's only a 2-headed giant on guard, and he is under orders to slay any young man who comes to the gate. I shall just have to take a chance, said Marco. Thank goodness. Please let me have the boots. The necromancer got them out of the closet and blew the dust off them. I don't travel much at my age, he explained. Now there is one small difficulty. With each step you take in these boots, you will go 7 leagues. A league, 1,000? 100? Meters. Since or metrics of some sort. Since a league is okay. Since a league is 3 miles, 7 leagues is 21 miles. That's good math. However, the green glass tower is exactly 190 miles. Still doesn't sound that bad. And 21 does not go into 190. Oh, I see. It's like the end of trouble. You've got to get the exact count to get home. If you can wait a little while, I will figure out for you how you can go 190 miles in strides of 21 miles each. How long will it take you? Demanded Sylvia. Oh, how's Sylvia going to travel? About 3 days, I should think, said the necromancer. Never mind, Sylvia said briskly. I know what to do. Of course she does. Put on the boots, Marco. Marco slipped them on over his own boots like galoshes. Now what? He said. Now you may take 9 giant strides, Sylvia replied. He seized her around the waist and off he went. Okay. Off they went. With every stride they sailed high in the air. Far below they could see jagged cliffs, deep holes darting out of fire and smoke of mud, a black quaking bog, and the glitter of a river of sharp steel blades. With each stride, Marco managed to touch clear ground, and then he was off again, soaring over all the obstacles. With the 9th stride, they stood in safety among grassy hills. Marco looked about. I don't see any tower, he said. We have come 189 miles, said Sylvia. They didn't even stop for a potty break. We shall have to walk the last mile. Marco slipped off the boots and tucked them under his arm. He said he and Sylvia began walking, and to pass the time, Marco sang songs and told jokes. I guess he ran out of verses. Before long, they saw rising up before them a shining round tower of dark green glass, as smooth and as cold as ice. They stopped at a short distance away and stared at it. No one could possibly climb the walls. There were no windows, for of course in a glass tower one wouldn't need any. Before the front gate stood a giant with 2 heads. Both his faces were hideous and frowning. He bore a club twice as long as a man, bristling with iron spikes. Suddenly Marco snapped his fingers. My father gave me instructions for rescuing the princess, he said. I have them right here. He looked at his wallet. Now he's feeling pretty badass. He searched through his pocket. Oh, never mind. No, I haven't, he said glumly. I must have lost them on the road in the rainstorm. Oh, Marco, said Sylvia, and she almost added, what an idiot. Not my sentiments exactly, but she liked him far too much for that. Oh. So instead, she said, I have an idea. Wait right here, and don't move. All right, said Marco. Then he said, wait for what? What are you going to do? I'm going into the tower, said Sylvia calmly. But, don't worry. The monster has instructions to bash any young man who comes to the gate. But I'm a girl. She marched to the gateway. Sure enough, although the giant glared at her with all 4 of his eyes, he didn't move. Sylvia entered the tower. In the great hall she found an old man mopping the floor. Sylvia may not be as dumb as Marco. Is there a princess named Aurelia? She asked. The caretaker, I was going to say cracker, he may be also. The caretaker leaned on his mop and eyed her. "Why, my dearie?" he cackled. If you've come to visit her, you're just too late. She was rescued yesterday by a nice young man as ever I did see." "What?" cried Sylvia. "How did he manage?" "He had a bit of paper. He had told them what to do," said the caretaker. "He said he found it by the roadside. He came in by the back door, you see. No giants there. I bet it was that necromancer with his cat." "Brother," said Sylvia. It must have been edited. "Thank you very much." She went back to join Marco and broke the news to him. "What a shame," said Marco, looking very downcast. "Of course, I don't mean it's a shame about Aurelia. I'm glad she was rescued. But I just can't seem to do anything right. What on earth am I going to say to my king, my father?" "I suppose," said Sylvia thoughtfully, "no other princess will do. It had to be Aurelia." That's with a question mark. Marco brightened. "Why no, all I have to do is rescue a princess," he said. "It doesn't matter which one." "In that case, everything is all right," said Sylvia. "I'm a princess." You are, how splendid," Marco said. "What shall I rescue you from?" "You've already rescued me," Sylvia answered. "You rescued me from boredom. Until you came along, I was ready to scream with weariness and dullness. But with you, I've never known a dull moment." Marco laughed with delight and took her in his arms. Then his face fell again. "No, it won't do," he said. "Why, I can't even tell my right from my left." "That doesn't matter in the slightest," said Sylvia. "You have me. And I can always tell you which is which." They kissed each other and turned about and set out hand in hand for home. The end. Stupid Marco.